Imagine you're climbing up a Himalayan peak, the cold biting at your skin while a heavy snow falls all around you. Then you hear a roar that echoes through the mountains, one that freezes you in place. Then you look through the sleet and you see a large, hairy beast standing on a ridge in the distance. That is what happened to Eric Shipton when he climbed Mount Everest in Nepal. I'm Eric Whiteside, and your transmission has been set to the Echo Diaries. "44-year-old Eric Shipton stomped through the fresh powder of snow that had just fallen. He looked up to the giant peak in front of him. 'Unafraid, I will conquer you,' he said." Mount Everest was a peak many wanted to climb, but few actually had the expertise to climb the mountain. But Eric Shipton, he had those expertise, for he was a mountaineer, one that was ready to take on the daunting task that most could. He looked at the peak and grinned. "Throw whatever you will at me," he said. "I will conquer you. I will get to the top, no matter what." A Sherpa, Tenzing, overheard him and waved his finger. "Please, you don't want to get her angry, for she will be calm as long as you show her respect, but she too will show her wrath if you mock her." Eric laughed. "All right, whatever you say." Tenzing looked at the man very hard, and then he looked up at the peak and blessed the mountain and their journey. When the Sherpa walked off, Eric looked again at the mountain. "Let's see what you got," he said. "I'm unafraid." They walked on through the snow beneath the burning sun. Eric adjusted his goggles, thankful he had them on. Then he kept on moving through the snow and the powder as it got deeper and deeper. He looked back and down the mountain like a little speck, the colored tints vibrant in the sun, their many hues of colors reminding them of where safety was. Then a sudden howl of the wind caught him by surprise. It shook the team and bit at the exposed skin. Eric tried to wrap himself better. That way nothing was exposed. He shivered. Tenzing studied the mountain and then looked to Eric. "She's unhappy." Eric frowned. "Don't act like I offended her." Tenzing called to the party. "We all need to stick together, watch our surroundings, watch each other." They then carried on, their boots sunken so far down the snow was now at their waists. But they carried on, pushing forward. Eric took a breath. The air was thin and hardly able to fill his lungs. He coughed and tried again. "It's getting harder to breathe," he said. Tenzing walked up to him. "It's time. You should use your oxygen." "Nonsense," Eric said. "I don't need anything like that." "But it's time," Tenzing insisted. "We all need our oxygen." Eric waved him off. I'll be fine. You worry about yourself and the others, for my lungs are as sturdy as a mule." Tenzing laughed. "Even mules need their oxygen." Then a few miles later, they came to an ice wall that stood in front of them, 50 feet high, one they had to scale. Eric looked up to it. "All right," he said. "Now things are getting exciting." Eric looked to the others. "Ready up, boys. Get your pickaxe ready. It's time to climb." And they did. By late afternoon, Eric was halfway up the wall. He was jamming his ice pick into the wall while kicking the spikes of his boots into the wall to get himself sturdy. Suddenly, something caught his peripheral. He looked over. Through the sleet and the snow, he could see a massive silhouette standing on a ridge. "What is that?" Eric said, squinting, trying to see if his eyes were betraying him. He blinked, and it was still there. He looked to the other men. "Do you see that?" But his voice fell silent to the howl of the wind. He then looked again at the silhouette, but there was nothing there. Eric laughed and shook it off. Then all of a sudden he saw it again. This time it startled him, and he lost his grip. He was slipping, but caught himself before he fell. Tenzing felt the rope go taut and looked down. "You okay down there, Eric?" he asked. Eric, gasping, looked back over to the silhouette, but again it had vanished. Thirsting for more monster mayhem? Check out issue 1 of my comic White Blood for absolutely free. It's a tale about a woman turned into a white who must fight the Zombie King and reclaim her life. The only problem is the Zombie King has other plans. He sent his own zombie plague to stop her in her tracks. Meanwhile, other whites are on the same mission, but will stop her if she gets in their way. If you want to check out more, go ahead and go to the link in the comments below. Also, if you want to support our channel, go ahead and pre-order our American Cryptid Survival Guide coming out September 1st. It's exactly what you need to survive if you come in contact with a cryptid in one of the 50 states. So get it now. Let's tune you back to our Echo Diary. Once Eric was able to find his grip again, he hurried up the ice wall till he made it to the top. He climbed over the edge and rolled, breathing heavily. He pulled out his mask, turned on his oxygen, and put it over his mouth. He breathed heavily into the mask. Tenzing noticed and walked over to him. "What happened?" he said. "Did you see something?" Eric looked at him suspiciously. "Is there another team on the mountain that I don't know about?" Tenzing shook his head. "No, only us." "What is it?" Eric stood up and readjusted his pack. "It was nothing," he said. Then he stormed off. Tenzing watched Eric as he made his way towards the front of the team. He then looked to the west, and he saw clouds rolling in. "No," he said to the mountain. "Please, keep us safe." And then he hurried after Eric. The snow began to fall heavily, and the winds began to howl, pushing them so hard they almost lost their footing. But they trekked on, fighting it, trying to get to the next base camp. They trekked on. "We're almost there. We get to this next base camp, then it's right to the top," Eric said, grating through his teeth. He then looked at the mountain. "I won't be defeated." And then he heard over the wind a grisly roar. The whole team looked to see what it was. Tenzing felt himself go cold. "The Yeti," he said. It didn't take the men long to discover the giant silhouette that stood in front of them, blocking their path. Tenzing walked up to Eric and tugged on him. "We must go back. The Guardian, he won't let us pass." Eric pulled himself free. "What is the Guardian?" "The Yeti who rules Everest. We must go, and we must hurry down." Eric laughed. "Yeti? Is this some kind of sick joke? I paid good money to get to the top, and that's where I'm going. I'm going to the top. We all are." Tenzing shook his head. "He won't let us pass." Suddenly, Eric didn't heed his warning. He took another step. Next thing they knew, the silhouette began to charge at the men, ferociously roaring and growling. Eric froze. Tenzing stepped in front of him and pushed him back. "Move!" The Sherpas all ran ahead of the Western men, pulling out their ice picks, ready to stand their ground. "Run," Tenzing said. "Down the mountain. Go!" Eric stumbled back onto his feet and started running. He got a few paces down when he heard the men scream behind him. He looked back and saw Sherpas flying through the air and disappearing into the sleet and snow. The other 10 members screamed as they ran behind him. Eric pointed. "Down! We go back down," he said, as he moved quicker and quicker. The men followed him, the Sherpas' screams fading into the distance. As they went further down the mountain, the blizzard picked up, and they couldn't see in front of them, losing each other through the snow. Eric found himself alone. Where'd everybody go? Then he heard the roar of the beast again. Feeling chilled to the bone, he began to look for shelter. That's when he saw a cave off in the distance. He hurried towards it, breathing heavily. He dove inside. The cave was frozen over. The stone had become icy and blue. Eric rushed over between two boulders and hid himself. He huddled down. Hours went by, but nothing. Not his team members, not the beast. And eventually, he drifted off to sleep. All of a sudden, he was jolted awake. It was morning. The blizzard had ceased, and light poured into the cave, brightening it up so he could see his surroundings. It was quite beautiful. If he had the time, he would have stayed to admire it, but he was too scared and knew he had to get back down to the mountain or else find his men. But as he stood and prepared himself to climb back down, all of a sudden, something caught his eye in the corner of the cave. He began to walk back there, and that's when he saw it. The men, the Sherpas, all piled together, their bones cracked and twisted, blood all over the cave. He gasped, and that's when he felt the most alone. "I need to get out of here," he stepped back. "I need to get home," he stepped again. "I need to get off this mountain." He stepped one more time, then he felt a hand grab him on the shoulder. cold sweat began to run down his face, and his heart began to pound in his chest. He could hardly breathe. Then he heard a voice, a familiar voice that relieved him some. "Eric," Tenzing said. "You're alive." He looked back. Never in his life had he been so happy to see the Sherpa. "Tenzing," he said, "we need to go down now." Eric shook his head. I can't just leave my men here like this." "If you don't," Tenzing said, "we'll both die." Eric wanted to resist the Sherpa's words, but he couldn't. "Okay," he said, "let's go." And he followed the Sherpa out of the cave. They climbed down further and further until they got to that ice wall. "You go first," the Sherpa said. "I'll follow close behind." Eric agreed. Then they heard a giant thud as a giant ice ball rolled past them and over the cliff. Then he and the Sherpa looked up the mountain, and there, standing 20 yards away, was the giant, massive creature, its thick white fur waving in the wind, its diamond blue eyes glaring at them. Its face was flat with 2 wide holes for its nostrils, and its fangs were large and sharp and almost canine-like. It was big, bulky, with muscular arms and legs, and it stood upright like a man, but it was no man, more ape than anything. "The Yeti," Eric said, now believing it fully. Tenzing whipped out his ice picks. "Go, I'll protect you." Eric thought of the men that they lost, thought about how stubborn he'd been, thought about how he ignored Tenzing's warnings, and he shook his head and pulled out his own ice picks. "No," he said, "I'll stand with you. We fight." Tenzing looked at Eric and found respect for the man. Then he nodded. They readied themselves as the beast looked at them. Then it hunched over, beat its chest, and then leaned up and roared. Then it charged them in, running at first, then jumping to all fours. All of a sudden, Eric and Tenzing felt the earth shake, and they could see above them the snow falling down from the mountain. "Avalanche!" Tenzing said, pointing. This drew the beast's attention. It stood from its charge and looked back to see the snow barreling down towards them like a giant white wave. "Climb down," Tenzing said. "It's our only chance." No ropes to keep them safe, they descended, going down as quickly as they could. Then a shadow fell over them. They looked up, and there they could see the diamond blue eyes of the Yeti staring down at them, breathing heavily. It looked like it was about to pursue, but then the earth shook again, and by that time the avalanche slammed into the Yeti. It roared as the Yeti and the snow plummeted over the cliff, falling down further and further until it slammed at the bottom. Eric waved his hand to Tenzing. "Stay close to the wall. It's our only chance." Both men leaned as close as they could to the wall as the snow fell right behind them like a waterfall. Then everything went silent. The 2 men looked at each other respectfully. By nightfall, they found themselves at base camp. Eric shook Tenzing's hand. "Thank you," he said, "for saving my life." Tenzing looked at the man. "Next time, we'll make it to the top." Eric looked back at the peak and shook his head. "I don't think the mountain wants me here. And if I've learned anything from you, I must respect her." Then, a few hours later, a chopper came. They hopped inside, and the chopper began to fly upward. Eric looked out the window, and there he could see on a ridge a silhouette looking back at them. And even through the snow and the sleet, he could see the diamond blue eyes of the creature. It had survived. So next time you want to climb the Himalayan mountains, remember this. Be prepared, for there is an abominable beast out there. And keep your transmission tuned to the Echo Diaries.